It's a banana, pineapple, blueberry, carrot chai waffle today. So it's a double-decker one. I have one on the bottom, and then I put the pineapple on, and then I put the other waffle on top. And James is going to be talking about Nala Ayad, 1,000 Farewells. Is that what it's called?
She would say farewell to the CDC. But yeah, she's the person that hosts ideas, or as I call it, what's a big idea? So she was born in Winnipeg in 1976. Nala Ayad's family gave up a comfortable life in Winnipeg for the squalor of a Palestinian refugee camp and the man Jordan. What a family. They take her to the refugee camp. But how squalorous could it have been? Family took they took her kid to, and maybe some others too. I don't think she was to a refugee camp. Like, how bad was it really? How often do people go from Canada to a refugee camp? I think that the squalor is a little bit exaggerated. So the family returned to Canada while I was 13. The Middle East and its problems receded for many years. Well, from her, but...
Well, what were they doing in the refugee camp? Honestly, I would wonder about the motivations of the parents.
I can't think they've been... Were they working there or something like that? But the first Gulf War and the events of 9/11 reignited her interest. Why wouldn't you have been interested all the way along? Soon she was reporting from this region full-time, trying to make sense of the wars and upheavals that have affected its people. No. The people affected the people. The people generate the wars. There would be some exceptions, some fine exceptions, but no, they want war there. Affected its people and sent so many of them seeking a better life elsewhere. I'm getting tired of people seeking a better life elsewhere. Make a better life where you are, you stupid. Make a better life where you are. Because, so often when you seek a better life elsewhere, you just bring the squalor with you. Yeah. There are all sorts of exceptions.
You have to work to try to build your own Eden.
Yeah, why not?
You put in the work to build your own Eden. You don't go
squatting on other people's
Eden and say,
territory.
Oh, I want that Eden. I'll just move on into their Eden. No, you figure out, okay, what are they doing to build what you want?
Yeah.
That's it. If you want a specific kind of lifestyle, figure out, well, what are they doing to build that lifestyle?
What are they doing? Of course, the whole idea is they're ripping off where we are, and we're going to go and we're going to help them rip off where we came from. Of course, that's the commie outlook on things. So somewhere along the line, she got something like a master's degree. The last time I had any sort of respect for someone, I won't say respect, but felt any sort of fear for someone with a master's degree was I just woke up.
I know. But what I'm saying is there are a lot of people out there who are amazing, who have a master's. They're on their way to a PhD, or maybe they don't want a PhD, but they're awesome people.
Exactly right. I never got a master's degree. No. The last time I ever had any sort of fear, shall we say, that it's not even that, because I didn't fear them. But respect was the wrong word, because was 1982, and I was at work. Well, it wasn't at work, but it was involved with people at work, at someone's place, and pretty well everyone was there, including the volunteers. and there were 3 people with master's degree. I just finished getting my bachelor's, and we were playing Trivial Pursuit for the first time, and I think Trivial Pursuit had maybe been invented for 1 year by that point in time, or invented, marketed, I should say. I don't know how long it had been in there. And despite the fact that there were 3 people with master's degrees, one who taught at the college, he's a nice guy, very nice, and one who was the archivist of the museum, he's very, very nice guy. And then my boss, he was anything but a nice guy. But everyone wanted to be on James's team. Hi, I'm James. So that's the last time. And understand, it wasn't close. The last time I had any sort of, well, fear's not the word for it,
But you realized that you had worked on your own to gain knowledge that
was way beyond
yeah.
beyond the master's level.
Yeah.
So here's Nala Ayed. She's an expert. Look at that face, eh? Expert on the Middle East and so many other things, because holy smokes, this program, Ideas, it's so many different things, and here she is asking these pertinent, rarely impertinent questions. Sometimes there are some competent people on. For example, there's a person, one Rhodes Scholar, one of the, I think, 3 or so that were one from graduates from the University of Lethbridge. She used to be in, not now, but the person who won the Rhodes Scholar used to be in my sciences school. And she was something like, I don't know, was the president of the University of Toronto. Probably by far the most prestigious university in Canada, despite what the Maclean says every year, where it's sometimes McGill, sometimes it's Queen's or something like that. No, it's the University of Toronto, pretty well. And if it isn't University of Toronto, then it's University of BC, forget McGill and all this sort of stuff. So, Nala Ayed, a while back, she had something on the it was something like the 10th anniversary of the so-called Egyptian Revolution. It had something to do with Egypt, and then the Arab Spring. Okay, so that was the Arab Spring, I think, and now it was a couple of days back she had something on the Egyptian Revolution. Someone's written a novel about the revolution in Egypt. Okay, ideas. Let's forget about discussing novels as ideas. Or as someone once put it, all right, now for the testimony of literature. Testimonial of literature, not testimony. You don't bring literature up onto a trial, like up onto the, in front of a judge and a jury for trial. All right, now for the testimony of literature. It's the final say. You might bring in some experts, but it's not because, hey, like this guy's written a novel and he knows everything about this question. No. Anyway, this guy wrote a note. And they keep on talking about the desirability, she and her guest, of the revolution. But they don't really say what they want after the revolution. They just want a revolution. They got to have a revolution. So this guy knew a little bit about the history of revolutions. And he's going, it takes a while to have a revolution, but I'm optimistic. It'll happen eventually. Yeah, but is that going to be good? And he is right. Like, it takes several hammerings. There was a civil war. They call it a civil war, but it was a revolution. Back about, I think it started 1642, the Oliver Cromwell. It didn't take. What's the one that took? It was the Glorious Revolution. From less than 50 years later, 1688, 1689. and it kind of came from without, and it kind of imposed the beginnings of democracy on England. And then they kind of got more and more freedom, the aristocracy allowed more and more freedom to people, but they didn't get anything like real democracy until after World War I. Just a long time later, and that's when they gave the vote to women. I can't remember exactly when it was. We'll say roughly 1920. That's roughly the time my mom was born. Now, so he's talking about Russia. Russia didn't have their revolution. They had their first revolution in 1825, and they were called Decembrists. Now, I'm trying to listen to this guy. He's done a great job learning English, but he's not necessarily the sort of person you want on radio. You might be able to decipher what the person's saying if you can read his lips. But I'm going, what is the guy saying? And I'm not the worst person for picking up accents. Like, what is the person saying? I can remember there was a Japanese prof I used to hang around with. He was a physics prof, and people come talk with me, and the physics prof would start saying a few words and they'd be hurrying off, scurrying off, because they'd be scared because they couldn't understand what the guy was saying. I could pick out what the guy was saying. And usually I get a little bit better if I've got about an hour. Ideas lasts an hour. It doesn't have much content. It doesn't have an hour's worth of content. And there's no advertising or stuff like that, aside from what she wants to advertise for free. But, for example, this guy's novel.
Well, on public coin. It's not free.
It's on public coin. Exactly right. Yeah. So, I mean, this guy got to advertise his novel for free at my expense, Pauline's expense, our dog's expense. No. 1825. And then there was the one, he doesn't talk about the one in 1904, 1905. And that one didn't take. And then the one that took in 1917 was overthrown by a coup. How good were all those revolutions? Well, look where we at now. Look at where the world's now. Look at where the Ukraine is now. How good was that revolution? Why would you want that revolution? You know, I tried to translate, and I did a reasonably good job. It's not my favorite job of translations, of a poem that Pushkin wrote to celebrate. Well, maybe that's not the proper word. What happened to the Decembrists? It's just a small wee thing, but I think 5 people were sent to the gallows, and then a few people were sent to Siberia for trying to overthrow the Tsar. Compare and contrast with what the commies would do. Stalin, there's one little document I've seen in a book, and it might be true. There he is. He signed away to death, consigned to death, more people than all the Romanov dynasty did. And when is the Romanov dynasty? It dated back hundreds and hundreds of years before it was overthrown by the, well, it wasn't by the communists, it was by the revolutionaries. The communists killed the survivors. So, yeah, in one day he signs off more, he consigns more people to death than all the Romanovs did in their more than several hundred years of rule. So how exactly did those revolutions improve things? How did it improve things for Ukrainians? How did it improve things for the Mennonites who were sitting in the Ukraine when the revolution happened? Where are the Mennonites? They're over here now, because things didn't get better for them. There's no guarantee a revolution will improve things for, well, but the revolutionary ruling class.
Yeah, but it won't even do that for, like, right now. Like, we were just talking about Putin and how he's fighting a war that against people that, like, it's 30 years old more? America is not the power that needs to be worrying about now. So he's trying to be the big
war.
guy.
The Cold War is
against
it's over 30 years. It ended in 1991.
So he's trying to be the big player against the Americans. Well, the big players now are the Chinese.
It used to be there was no,
go ahead.
There was one world power, and then the Chinese have forged not ahead, they're catching up.
Yeah, but
But Russia is not a world power. Okay?
No, they're ahead of Russia.
They, I am afraid, have forged ahead of Russia.
And you have to have some
and I say
for
afraid.
the future and realize that they are ahead. Even
you hearing that, Putin? They're ahead of you.
They're ahead of the Americans because if you look at where they are now and where they are going, and you compare it to the state of the United States, I really believe your sentiment of there's the West and there's the rest, and if the West doesn't bind together, then all is lost for democracy, for people. I remember
the environment.
remember people saying, and I was one of them. Saying things like, one world, one people, and it's like, okay, well, which people would that be then? Would that be, various Muslim populations of the world definitely wouldn't like to see my hair right now, even though I'm wearing a scarf on my head. That'd probably be too offensive for them. Because
some might
my
like
hair
it,
is offensive to God somehow.
You'd look like a prostitute.
Yeah, I would look like
offensive,
a prostitute,
I don't know.
because
like
my hair is
a lot of guys would get really excited.
Maybe.
In all the wrong ways, all stirred up and whatever.
Yeah. So, I don't know, and well, anyway, I shouldn't have singled them out, because there's many other people of the world. It's just there's a lot of Muslim people in the world, and
well, you were talking about the Russians, and the two main bad actors now outside of the Chinese
the people
are Muslims. Not all of them.
No.
But the majority of them.
Yeah, but the people that Putin should be worrying about are on the other sides of his borders. They're not over.
They shouldn't even be worried about Muslims. They should be worried about the Chinese.
Right.
The Muslims, doesn't matter where you're at.
No. Because if
you should be worried about
a Muslim
Chinese
person, you should be worried about the Chinese too. You should be looking at how they're treating the Uyghurs and go, oh, wait a minute. When they take over,
not if you
when
keep
they
on
take
behaving the way you have
your
been.
lands, because if you're fighting the West, you're fighting a battle that it's gone. You're not looking to the future. You're not looking to the present, frankly. But you should be saying, well, what is going to happen to our people when they take over, when the Chinese take over all of our resources and move Chinese, Han people into Muslim lands? What's going to happen?
Islam, once the People's Republic of China takes over the whole world, Islam is dead. Now, Islam is going to have to liberalize.
Yes, so my hair isn't offensive anymore.
Going to have to liberalize, so hair isn't offensive anymore. So you can live in the civilized world without people being worried about you blowing everything up because you're annoyed about this and annoyed about that.
going to have to liberalize. But if you hang with the West, you'll be able to liberalize, and Islam will be able to survive. You'll have to have something like a Reformation. But before that, you'll have to have a Renaissance. You'll have to have two Renaissances. You say now that there were two of them. And you're going to have to democratize all this sort of stuff. You're going to have an Enlightenment. You haven't had any of those sorts of things. And that sort of stuff. But you're going to have to do it, or else your religion is dead. You're going to have to hang with the rest. Same thing with Russia. Putinism, the Russian Empire is dead. The population of Russia right now is less than the population of Pakistan. It's less than the population of Bangladesh. It is roughly 1/10 of the population of India. India is part of the program too. They're not hanging with the West anymore, in case you haven't noticed. Russia's population is 1/10 of China's. People's Republic of China. You're no longer a big player. You're half the size of the population of the United States. I gather you're something like 1/10 of the size of the American economy. Roughly 1/10 the size of the European economy before you got England to, before you got Boris Johnson, or whatever his name is, to do your will and do Brexit and separate England away from things. Yeah, you're sitting on a lot of nuclear weapons, and you're able to do a lot of hacking and all that sort of stuff. But you're no longer, I'm looking in the future, a world power. You can't hold on to it. What you should be doing is trying to hang with everyone else but the People's Republic of China. They're the only ones who are going to allow Russians to develop as Russians and not kowtow to the People's Republic of China, to the Han peoples. That's what the world is faced with. So when you're squatting on the eastern part of the Ukraine and threatening to take over the rest, China's sitting over on the other side of the thing. Go west, young man. Go west. Go west, dumb man. Go west.
Yeah. But I've interrupted you. We got off on a kind of different topic.
No,
and
this is no. You were going exactly where I wanted to go.
Oh, really?
Exactly right.
Well,
so
I mean,
I was talking about the revolution.
She's shown her hair in this cover.
Well, she's not a fundamentalist or anything like that. Yeah. So they were talking about the counter-revolution. Well, what's the counter-revolution in Egyptian context? I'm not sure what they were talking about. They were talking about the rapes that took place in Tahrir Square. I'm not sure who they were blaming on. Were they blaming on the fundamentalists who won 72%? I think it was a fairly fair election. 72% in the election back when was that, 2014 or something like that? 72%. That means the Nazi commies to become more Nazi and less commie under Mubarak, and the people who believed in some sort of left-wing stuff, and I'm afraid a lot of them would be commies, they'd have to share 28% of the vote. And that's, he said, the revolution will succeed. 28% of the vote, we're averaging out 14%, 14% each? What? Are you crazy? So I think they were talking about what happened. They never mentioned Mohammed Morsi once. While I was, listen, I didn't catch all of the show. I was in transit in a car and stuff like that. And I had to go from the car to my place and all this sort of stuff. Had to hit the washroom, so on and so forth. Maybe I mentioned Mohammed Morsi. All sorts of yip and yap about Mubarak. All sorts of yip and yap about Sisi, who displaced Morsi, thank heavens. But they did talk about the counter. I think they were talking about the religious backlash that happened when they got into power. 72%. Now, it wasn't all of the Muslim Brotherhood, but like I think they got over 50% of the vote, but maybe not. But anyway, 72% fundamentalist vote. Wow, that's scary. That's more than twice as much as all the rest of the parties got. That would be commies, maybe some socialists, nationalist commies. They basically turned more into nationalists under Mubarak and stuff like that. They started off as nationalist commies under Nasser and stuff like that, and they started to change under Nasser's successor, Sadat. And like if the when people take stuff off their clothing like this, it's a sign of disapproval. You see that, Nella? You seeing this? This is for you. Yeah, exactly right. It can mean
I
a
think
lot
it's
of
a sign that we have a lot of chihuahuas, and I don't clean up.
But I don't do it all the time. It's disapproval. I'm sitting there.
You wouldn't believe how much chihuahuas shed.
They don't have that much fur.
Yeah, they're so small. Where does it all come from?
I'm just worried they're going to turn into Mexican hairless and
I
shit
know.
so fast. Anyway. It'd be mainly Opie, the white hair.
Yes, he's incredible,
He's
and
the
he
one
has
who's
the
the least
least
hair
amount of
knows.
hair.
Yeah.
It's mostly his
Yeah.
that we find on our clothes. I guess that's why he doesn't
Yeah.
have much, because he's shedding it all
Yeah.
over the place.
See, we got a sense of humor. We got a great sense of humor. But the big trouble is there's so many people out there that don't have a sense of humor, that want to mess other people up. Truckers, trucker trash, not all truckers,
No.
not most of them. But on and on it goes. Stupid people. Anyway, this is just a preliminary review. I haven't finished this up. It's awful. I sit there, read it. She's so optimistic. She still calls it the Arab Spring. She said so on the show 2 nights ago or something like that. I call it the Arab Spring. I knew right away. Remember that? I was dying of cancer. And it was on, we still had TV then, and we still were hooked into cable. And I was just walking around trying to maintain, I was dying of bone marrow cancer, and my back was going. I was just trying to maintain, I knew I had to move around to maintain my bone strength. And I'm going, I don't know what's happening. The most depressing thing, that might have been the most depressing thing. Watching what was happening with the Arab Spring all over Egypt, so on and so forth, Tunis, Tunisia, and Syria. And everyone's calling it the Arab Spring. And Obama's trying to bring Gaddafi down in Libya. Gaddafi's an awful person. Awful. Barely qualified as a person. What a monster. They're all calling it Arab Spring. I was saying, I could call it the Arab Fall, but it's really the Arab Winter. It'll be followed by the Arab Winter. I was saying it. I was just trying to drag myself around, trying to keep from falling over. Shameful. And she's still like optimistic. And they said, oh, it was so glorious. Now this was published, I think, in 2012. 2012, paper 2013. So it was still not evident